Good morning, everyone. It's a difficult task to respond to this kind of sentiment and occasion, but people who know me for decades know that I have this huge propensity to rush in where the angels fear to tread. So, with so many dignitaries here, I was thinking of how to open my remarks, and I decided that it is best not to touch all the deities which are around, because there are 84 lakhs deities in India, and you have to go to Raghunath Mandir in Jammu to see them all installed duly, respectfully. So I decided to revert to the simple Trai, and no one needs in this country to be told who the Trai are, the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh of the entire pantheon. And I begin by reference to Mr. Mahapatra, Subbarao, Dr. Karthikeyan, and they represent to me the spirit of ISTD here, both internal, external, past, present, and you can have as many Sangams as you want. Person like me who has moved over a lot of domains, from teaching to consulting to working in the corporate sector to working for the government, at this point of time almost misses the daily ritual which I had of clearing my vocationally unused chords for at least 60 minutes every time I got to speak when I was either in IIT or IIM. But you needn't fear, I am not going to complete an hour here with you. So it's not as if you have an hour to listen to, but I do have some thoughts to share. I'd like to link up the things present with the things past, because when you are in your 47th year, there is a time for retrospect and a time for looking at the future. ISTD has had very rich traditions. And I recall a convention in 1985. It is totally coincidental that I happened to chair it. It is totally coincidental that we held it in the pride of place in Delhi Convention Centers, that is at Vigyan Bhavan. But we talked of human resources planning and enterprise management. And if you have lived as many decades as I have, it is nobody's case that my professional journey has been paved with rose petals. I have taken as many kicks beneath the table as any one of you have. And I have faced as many adversities which many of you have. And one day, if any one of you wishes to have a comparative statement, I'll be happy to settle down with you and see where the scores lie. But what it has taught me is never say die. There is enough good sense in the world, there is enough good faith in the world, otherwise there would have been utter chaos in the world. There is a moral law. We may or may not believe it, it still governs. And if that makes me old-fashioned, you are welcome to damn me as one. But one thing which I have done as I have gone through my journey, I have always left documented footprints. I know very often people ask for documents. I am a little irreverent about documents, because let me tell you a simple truth. There is no proof that my parents were married to each other. At each place, when I put down my father's name and my mother's name, I tell myself, I hope I'm not committing perjury. Now, if you have parents who had marriage certificates, you are, of course, more lucky than I have. But my parents got married in 1942, where even registration of marriages was not a thought. Everything is not a matter of documentation. There are practices, there are patterns, and there are traditions which are brought to life because we believe in them. Leadership is a matter of belief, it's not a matter of documentation. Therefore, I have had to walk between two lanes all the time, and I believe that everyone is guilty unless proved innocent. So whenever I make a claim, and for those of you who know me a little better, you may be aware that I have a background in history. For 3 years, I taught history at St. Stephen's College when many of you were not even born, and I'm talking of 1968, 69, 70. Then I moved over via anthropology and political science to management at the University of Sussex, where with Richard Jolly we set up the Institute of Development Studies, and I was at the School of African Asian Studies. That's history. I'm not going to walk you through that. But at each step, what I did is document what I am doing, either in books, papers, or some publications, so that nobody ever accuses me of having made an extra claim. Coming back to this convention which I was referring to, the papers submitted in this convention are available to anyone who wishes to see in the IJTD of that year. It was a watershed convention for 4 reasons. One was it looked into human resources planning and activities, human resources information systems, human resources accounting and auditing, and human resources training and development and evaluation. People said, good heavens, we can't even manage one, and Dr. Gautam now wants to create a Sangam of 4 streams. It didn't deter me. I had the support of very capable people. From EIL, I had Dr. S. Ganguly. In BHL, Dr. Singh was the director HR those days. At CMC, we had Dr. P.P. Gupta. I could give you down the whole list. Subsequently, I brought this out in the book Comparative Manpower Planning Practices, the case of public sector undertakings. 30 years later, a major IT company today has packaged this onto the iCloud and has proclaimed it to be a major innovation on human resources management. And Rogers is the first Canadian company which is trying to implement it. That's another story. But my mandate is to talk of corporate innovation stories of sustainability. Now, of course, Subba Rao has beaten me to it, and I am delighted at being upstaged in pointing out that there is nothing innovative about innovation. It is all about change. A school to which I belong myself. And I don't mind being upstaged because I believe there is nothing new in the world. When you say, I love you, what is so new about it? Zillions of people before you have said it. And when you die, what is so new about it? There is no predictive validity. Give me a proof that I will die someday. I'd love to see it. Yet I believe I will die. What is the evidence? The evidence is all living human beings did die, though some of them died at 102, and I believe one died at 114. So for those of you who have been counting my years and said, oh my God, he's 134, when will he die? Well, have hope, I will die someday. In other words, the nature of evidence is manifold. I may have a light-hearted way of quipping around it, but the serious story is don't get carried by words. There is no concept of innovation unless there is a natural change. I have serious credentials in the field of innovation. I was last evening talking about it, and we got talking of the fourth eye. Pradeep Khandwala's book, where he has referred to my writings, and specifically one interview on page 94. So if you have been in the field of formal innovation, which was propounded by Galton 2 centuries ago, if you have reservations about some of the definitions. In this very city, I probably did the first major film on innovation, which was done by Balaji Films. And it was on innovation. And it was done under the auspices of Istd. Therefore, the first major takeaway for you on innovation is it must be consistent with the natural processes of change. It expedites it, it gives shape to it, it gives pace to it. Pace, shape, direction is what innovation actually does. So stop swearing about innovation as if it is some sort of a miracle. I would like to show to you a quick video.
13.7 billion years ago, we were crammed into a single point. 10 billion years ago, we were stars exploding into existence. 3 billion years ago, we were bacteria. We were alive. 550 million years ago, we were flatworms. We had hearts and brains. 400 million years ago, we were fish. We had jaws. 15 million years ago, we were great apes. We had arms, legs, and bigger brains. 5 million years ago, we were humans. We had voice boxes. 100,000 years ago, we could talk, but could not ask this question. 1,000 years ago, we were all God's creations, except the guys next door were heathens. 200 years ago, we were British, French, American, Indian, Chinese. 100 years ago, we had proof we were one species descended from apes. Few of us were pleased. 60 years ago, we declared we're all human, entitled to the same human rights. 10 years ago, we started saying we're global citizens. Today, we could tell a bigger story. We could be human. We could create a cultural identity that moves us, that takes us places, tell a story that sticks. And 50 years from now, we could be Martians. A billion years from now, we could be Andromedans living off new stars. 10 billion years from now, we could be the creative force of our universe. Or not.
Ladies and gentlemen, this to my mind is innovation. Are you in it or outside it? It is not a question of choices. I think ISTD at its stage in history has to answer this question. Are you for the processes of change or are you not in it? It is not a question of who leads it. It is a question of the historicity.
Is the drive.
One has to recognize that if historically the mantle falls upon a person, we need to have the wisdom to respect it. It happens in nations' histories, it happens in institutional histories. I might happen to mention it happens in family histories. Having said that, let me take the theme forward and recommend it to you that today the dominant theme is what produces economic value. Anything which does not produce economic value is of no use. The time has come to redefine human resources, and I have taken the liberty of say that human presence in an organization is looking at the human capital. 20 years ago, I used to talk of it as human resources, and my good friend Dr. P.P. Gupta, who was probably one of my first clients as chairman of CMC, turned around to me and said, Dr. Gautam, are human beings only resources? And Prem Gupta was very good at raising these fundamental questions, and I had the wisdom to respond to a good question. I changed the word resources to capital, and now it's been owned so widely that nobody would even remember unless I gave you the chapter and verse as to when I talked about it. But it's not about credit cards. History alone gives credit cards, and that happens decades after you have gone. It is done by consensus, not by writing things about yourself. So that doesn't interest me. If others have taken charge of my ideas, nothing like it. The ideas should flourish. Having said that, there are 5 components to human capital, competencies, a word which this country has practically forgotten. They don't know the spelling of competencies. Everyone's priority. If you are an upper caste, you want a priority. If you are a lower caste, you want a priority. If you are in a particular religion, you want a priority. Now this running around has to stop. I'm sorry, you can stop taking photographs, please, will you? I find it very disturbing. And there have been 3 interruptions while I'm talking. It may be your job to take a photograph. It is my job to talk to these people. If you have to, do it without disturbing anyone. I'm sorry for that outburst, but it is me. If I feel something, I say it. You don't like to deal with me, it's your call, I will respect it. Having said that, let me go back to what I was saying. If you have competencies, then alone you survive as an individual, you survive as an organization. I think the country has a long way to go because there is competitive demands for reservation. I have never seen any country, anywhere in the world, so much in competition with itself to be called backward. Now, if you think that calls for a crucifixion for me, please feel to do it. how do you develop a country which is in such intense competition to be called backward? With the result that the global revenue system takes up from Dubai and lands in Singapore. The entire South Asian subcontinent is overlooked as totally irrelevant to international commerce. You can see it in the development of ports. You can see it in the development of commerce. You can see it in the development of sea routes. And for those of you who know my credentials, know that I have a presence in maritime sector. I have a presence in a lot of these areas, and I have the figures and facts to back it up. Now, if it makes me the foul guy to flag it, at least I have the satisfaction of being consistent with my conviction. And this is without prejudice to anyone, without prejudice to the people who are of the forward castes and who want to be called backward, without people to the so-called backward classes who want to be called backwards, and you take it as far as you want. This country has to restore its faith in competencies to be competitive and to have what I have called economic value in a global scene. The second is knowledge. The third is social personality and attributes. The third is the ability to perform. We are all talking of great changes in this country, irrespective of political combinations. Because I am apolitical, it doesn't mean I don't have views on politics. These are two different things altogether. But look at each sector. IT, tourism, construction, just to name three. Which of us has not had a heartbreak in hiring a plumber for a job badly done? All of us spend fancy thousands of rupees on getting a smartphone, which nobody will teach us how to operate, and we use it like it was a phone bought 20 years ago. So to keep myself on the right side, I am extremely physically demonstrative when it comes to things like this. My favorite phone still is Nokia 2003, and I carry a smartphone so that nobody believes I'm outdated. It depends upon the audience I'm talking about. Because like everyone else, I have to keep myself current. So I speak in chaste English Oxbridge style because I went to my school education in Cambridge when I was 6 years old, you know. I can speak in typical Bhojpuri. And for those of you who think in terms of north, south, east, west, you know, this is a gang of the south. This is a gang of the north. God knows how many things are created. I am a pure, unmitigated, unrepentant Bihari married to a Tamilian girl. Now, where do you place me? For heaven's sakes, my second submission and your takeaway is innovation brooks no boundaries. It has to be competency-based, it has been quality-based, and it is a merger of people's attributes. I would like to get off this slide with a simple thought to you. If you don't complete the cycle of what I'm going to show you next, in this sequence of competency, knowledge, social personality, attributes, ability to perform, creativity, and innovation, then the cycle will not be complete, and it will be like inflation, where you are cutting money into half without cutting the paper. Now, if you find it too incomprehensible of what is inflation, and I'm asked this question, what is inflation? There is no point in talking of wholesale index and the escalation. Just talk of cutting money to half without cutting the paper. That is the quickest definition of inflation that I know. You are inflicting inflationary tendencies on human resources development. It will never grow. So the second takeaway, as I was saying, is complete the cycle of human resources management, put weight on its economic revenue, its economic value, and move forward the profession. My next submission is, it is embedded in a dynamic world. There is a changing workforce. For those of you who do not know me or my family, I have two daughters, both of them prodigies. And both of them, believe me, and I have to emphasize my class, otherwise you people won't listen to me seriously. You would say, you know, because he's an unsuccessful man, he's poking holes on all this. I belong to that class where children go abroad soon after their education. They get foreign citizenships. They will never come back to India. I am in that class, so, I have graduated. And when my wife asked me, what will you dress when you go to a corporate? I said, in a suit, of course, because if I went to them with a dhoti kurta, they would wonder, Dr. Karthikeyan ne kisko bula diya hai? Why on earth is he inviting somebody with a dhoti kurta? So I took out my best suit, and believe me, I even got it ironed last evening. The only thing I didn't put on was a tie, but you can see I've got a pocket square. So you should see me as comparable to the classiest of consultants. Otherwise, I'm not my salt. We haven't even created, and that's what tugs at my heart, Indian standards in anything. Even in the corporate world, when it comes to computers, you talk of IBM. There is no such thing as an IBM. Xerox has closed down. You still talk of Xeroxing. Name me one product. I'm sorry to say this. I do a lot of work with the government. Even today, I'm doing something for the Cabinet Secretariat. The details are not relevant because I'm one of those entities in the entire framework of organizational consulting. You can love me, you can hate me, but you can't do it without me. Because my specialization is about structures, about processes, about measuring efficiencies, and tell me no matter what you believe in, someday you have to get back to these indicators. The issue, ladies and gentlemen, is a very simple one. How does a community move forward without having established its own standards? And that is the biggest problem why so many of you who come from corporate enterprises are struggling for a place under the sun in your organization to get human resources or training and development get to be respected. Which is the area which undergoes the first financial cut whenever there is a so-called financial stringency. And ever since I got to a level where I had academic consciousness, there always has been a talk of financial stringency. And they will cut the business class travel of people, they must travel economy class. They never chip at the actual thing. I could give you more illustrations. My third takeaway is, if you want innovation to be practiced, create the climate of at least self-assessment and standards. You can't convert world into mutual exchanges. You say nice things about me, I'll say nice things about you. And if I don't like you, I will call you an idiot and you'll call me an idiot. What happens is Indians spend so much time calling each other idiots that the third person turns around and says, both of them are idiots. Don't deal with them. So the innovation is about the climate and about the environment. So remember, it's a changing workforce. It's a shrinking world. It is expanding time because technology has shrunk time. And above all, non-tangible assets are being reflected into the balance sheets of companies, which has been the story since 1992. I have a good friend here in Chennai, Velian. We sat together on the board of Exim Bank. And he has a very sharp mind. I have a lot of regards for him. And one day he asked, is it possible, Dr. Gautam, with all your work in audits and accounts, to look at future income as part of the assets? Mahapatra Sahab, I haven't been able to answer that. But part of my job at this point of my time in life is transfer all the difficult questions which I couldn't answer to younger and brighter people for their solutions. Having said that, please remember that there are roles, payrolls, which arise out of processes and business configuration. This is the central takeaway of my submission, and I have 9 slides, and those of you who are inclined to now look at your watch, I'm more than halfway through, and reminds me of this anecdote. When does an animal stop going into the woods? Anyone got an answer? When does an animal stop going into the woods? No one with such bright people here. I think the morning exercise has worn you out. You gave so many 5s to each other. You're trying to recover from the energy it took. Look, the animal starts going out of the wood when it is halfway through. Now, that will confuse you. It needn't confuse you. Till it is halfway, it is going into the woods. After it has gone into the woods, then it is going out of the woods. It's not a mathematical question. It's a commonsensical question. So you are now going out of the woods. It's about time you started putting on your thinking cap, because one of the biggest deficiencies which I have found in the practice of innovation is there are no clear-cut, time-bound, dynamic job descriptions available to the scale at which you want it and you need it. watch my words, job descriptions in a time-bound manner, that is, all job descriptions must be given with a date as to when they will come up for a review. All job descriptions must be dynamic, and all job descriptions will have a description of the competencies of the people across the world. This is the hallmark of successful companies. In India, I know some companies have done it, but even that has been an exception rather than the rule. So unless that is there, the roles are not clear. Unless the roles are there, the processes are not clear. Unless the processes are there, the payroll is always ad hoc. Sir, I need an increment. No, but you didn't reach the hit to my child in school. How do you get an increment? And I won't say whether this is public sector or private sector, because after I have looked at both the sectors, I have sat on more than half a dozen public sector boards, Hindustan Zinc, GAIL, SAIL. There's no point in naming them. In terms of business houses, I have been on the boards of agencies and companies and family houses, like the Singhanias, like the Tatas, like any number. Dangling them is not going to be any better. You doubt that? Go through the listing of the directors present and past, you'll find my name listed there. And I found that beyond superficial differences, the character of the running of the enterprises is remarkably the same. You may want to jump the public sector and get to a private sector. You will then discover how many advantages the public sector gave you in terms of the type of loans you had, the housing you had, the support system you had, the home travel, the LTC. God! I was a general manager in DCM Engineering and Electronics Division in 1982, and Joe Philip, who I believe will be here tomorrow, if I am right, he was then working for the Oberois, and we used to meet regularly in Delhi then. So I went to Joe and I said, Joe, I have this job in DCM Engineering and Electronics Division. IIT is threatening to take away my professorship, and it was very attractive because I was the youngest professor ever in IIT history. What should I do? So Joe sat down in his inimitable fashion, did a back of the envelope, literally a back of the envelope calculation. How much do you get for your driver? I said 900 rupees. How much do you get for this? How much do you get for that? He said, how much do you get in IIT? I gave him. He said, but young man, in IIT, you are able to walk to your place of work from your house. You have your health facilities on the campus. You don't need any transportation costs. What good is that 900 rupees you are going to Rajendra Travar from IIT? He said, on the balance, it is roughly the same thing. It's toss of the coin. You can choose what you want. But still people believe private sector is very attractive. And I could give you names of senior people who are already throwing their hat in 6 months before their retirement, hoping to get into a private sector, till they get there and recognize that going back to the public sector is no longer possible, because public sector also has some its unique freaks and foibles. What is it that I'm trying to tell you? If you are talking of innovation, create the processes mandatory. When you talk of innovation, what do you talk of? I consulted for CMC, and what did we talk of? When you enter CMC, the entrance is lowered with a pad there, so that P.P. Gupta used to say, so that you entered with your headboard, which shows you respect the organization. I used to consult for CDOT when Sam Petroda was still around. I did their performance management systems. And 10 years later, when Vishnu Pradhan called me back to it, I said, Vishnu, I had recommended assessing people on their technological competencies. It's nowhere there. You are discussing teamwork, you are discussing punctuality, you are discussing everything save their facility with technology. He says, God, I didn't realize we had to get you back to recognize this. And what innovation did we talk about? We give food 24 hours to people who come to CDOT. Now, when does facilities become innovation? Tell me. All of you are such senior people. Go back. And that's the purpose of such conventions. Do an in-house analysis and find out how many innovations your organization has actually practiced in the last 5 years. Then you will find coming to such conventions purposeful. Otherwise, have a nice time. I believe Dr. Karthikeyan and company are excellent hosts. I have cancelled 2 of my outings today only to come back and savor the hospitality. I almost said hostility, but that malpropism on that play in words would go down very badly with this audience. So I haven't. Enjoy yourself. Who told you have to take this convention seriously? Anyhow, these nominations for a lot of companies are perks. They're not supposed to cause value innovation. I'm sorry, I don't want to be irreverent, but I know how these innovations take place. Now, this has to be put together as a business configuration, and I have to take time to tell you, if you can take that away, you have spent your time productively listening to me. Now, for everything, there is a personalization and there is a contextual element on which choices have to be exercised. Even a petroleum company, say, in New Mangalore, cannot run like Haldia. And I have worked for both. And I could give you substantive issues of what you do with the refineries in both the places, though the technology of the refineries will remain the same. So, innovation is embedded in personalization. That is how you look upon innovation, whether you are serious about it, and contextualization. Don't get taken in by clouds or no clouds. Oracle is making a killing, no irreverence made, and why should you not make a killing? You have created a product on the iCloud. Now they are making a queue. And besides, let me tell you, Indian public sector undertakings don't mind giving crores because that's the government unstated policy. I know I may be lynched on my way back tomorrow because I'm saying so many controversial things which people normally carpet over. You know, there are standard ways of carpeting. Somebody asks you something, is your name Vaikunt Mehta? You are Vaikunt Mehta, but you'll say, I don't know. Who told you? So you dodge the question. You don't nothing. You don't even know your name. Is that so? You wear the person out, never offer an opinion. That's the quickest way to go up on the ladder in Indian organizations, not being innovative. Don't get taken away by these catchy slogans. They are like a beauty parade. They'll tell you about innovation, you wear that dress outside, they will lynch you. So, you get your own message. At a more serious level, human resources innovation will call for access, fusion, and an embedded analysis. The embedded analysis will have to do with keeping your dynamic resources alive. It will have to do with giving access to everyone, and above all, the fusion amongst the silos of different domains. Now, if that's becoming too heavy for you, let me tell you, I'm running out of time, and though the president did very generously say, we want to hear you, don't bother about time, I also know that there are better and more powerful observations to follow mine. Mr. Mahapatra is waiting in the wings, and I would not like at all to be here when you could be listening to him. I would like to suggest that personalization and contextualization, you will never remember personalization and contextualization because you are not used to taking down notes, even less are you used to serious presentations and convocations. I'll give you a story which you will remember, especially when you have a human resources conference. You know, we'll all love to gossip. In fact, I think our digestive system would be disturbed if we didn't listen to gossip and did not generate gossip. So I asked my students, what is the definition of gossip? And believe me, I have lived, grown up with, have some of the brightest teachers and some of the brightest students, and one of the students gave me a definition which I have since preserved to quote on occasions like this. He said, sir, a gossip is a person who will never tell a lie if he knows that truth will do more damage. Have all of you got that definition? A person becomes a gossip. Gossip there is a noun. Who will never tell a lie if truth will do more damage. Because his only interest is to damage. He's not interested in truth or falsehood. Having said that, I would like to talk of embedded analysis in a particular manner, which again, knowing the kind of patience level which we have, I'll give you a set of examples possibly to keep in mind and recognize that we live in contradictions. I'll give you just 10 of them, though I have 30 of them here. What is the most modern cooking? The definition is, it should be fireless. So cooking should be fireless. What is the best food to eat? People who are generously endowed like me knows this better, but even the more leaner and finer ones need to recognize it. The best food is the fatless. Which is the best dress? No prizes for guessing. Of course, the sleeveless. Who are the best leaders? The most shameless. The more lies you can take and the more Twitterati you are with utter nonsense, the more you are in circulation because the media quotes you better. How much does the government do to give you hope? Nothing. It's a hopeless government. The international prices of crude keep going down, your prices keep going up, and when your prices go down, they give you a redemption of 1 paisa. And the newspaper say, reduction all of 1 paisa. And what is a job? Just search your heart. It's a thankless job. And what is the police? Clueless. I'll stop there. Because if you have a situation where cooking is fireless, dress is sleeveless, government is hopeless, job is thankless, and police is clueless, then, ladies and gentlemen, you have to go somewhere else to understand what access is all about. But scholars of innovation will tell you that it is embedded analysis. Unless you know some IT, you will never understand embedded. You are from the medieval period, and medieval period wasn't all that bad, let me tell you. To conclude then, the future lies in the following manner: workforce modeling, workforce prediction, management of absence, attrition, and competition. If you can do that, you have put your innovation structure in place. And that is what innovation is all about. But all of it is based on human competencies, and I couldn't emphasize that enough. I am old-fashioned enough to believe that all that was to be learned was there from the time of the great deluge, which is popularly installed in human folklore, because you people wanted stories. So I had to tell you stories of innovation in CMC, innovation in CDOT. I'll give you another story, because stories prevent people from falling asleep. So the story of Noah. What are the lessons of Noah's Ark? 1, don't miss the boat. 2, remember that we are all in the same boat. Don't rock it. 3, plan ahead. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. 4, stay fit. When you are 90 years old, someone may still ask you to do something worthwhile. So you have no reason to lose hope. 5, don't listen to critics. Just go with the job that needs to be done. 6, build your future on high ground. For safety's sake, travel in pairs. 8, speed isn't always advantage. The snails were on board with the cheetahs. 9, when you are stressed, float a little. Ladies and gentlemen, there is still hope for you. The last slide. And this I will desist from explaining because it will save you time. It will help me to protect my flanks. If you can put together the context, the economy, the culture, the biology, and the psychology, these elements of interactory relationships, the icon there tells you how the leaves fly from one to another. Happy hunting, happy day, enjoy yourself. I hope you find something worthwhile in the remarks I shared with you. Thank you.